Sri Lanka, the miracle of Asia by 2016. A big role to play as far as investments are concerned. Are we on the right track, and can we be the miracle of Asia by the year 2016? 2 years from now, can we really do it? A big question mark in the mindset of many in Sri Lanka. To discuss all this and more, I have a special guest this evening, that is the Deputy Minister of Investment Promotion, Mr. Faisal Mustafa. A very good evening and welcome to Newsfirst in Focus. Starting off, right after the conflict ended in the year 2009, people expected there to be a boom in the country's economy, a boom in foreign direct investments. However, it did not happen as expected. What is the reason behind this?
I beg to differ in what you say, because there has been a boom. Take tourism, for instance, as just one sector. During the war, there was less than 350,000 tourists. Now we have over 1.2 million tourists. All our hotels are full. Every sector, there has been a big improvement. Everything is relative. You will say that Sri Lanka has not had a boom. I would say it had. But if you check the pulse of the people, there has been tangible benefit to the people, and there has been a boom.
Foreign direct investments. Let's talk about foreign direct investments. 2009 up until 2014. Is there a significant?
There's a significant growth in FDI in our country. Our target for this year is 2.5 billion. Already we have got over $1 billion foreign direct investment. As you know, the last quarter gets in the most amount of investment. So in as regards to the government's vision, we have achieved a lot through development and through a 5 hub concept. As you know, that we are positioning ourselves as a maritime, aviation, commercial, knowledge and energy hub, because we want to diversify various areas with regard to attract investment and also with regard to development.
Now, the target for this year, as you said before, was $2.5 billion US in terms of foreign direct investments. However, 9 months on to the year 2014, you all have achieved less than $1 billion, or even closer to $1 billion.
Have about over $1 billion.
Over $1 billion. So 3 months more. Can we achieve?
So I think you're going to the figures of the first quarter.
Right.
Not the first quarter, the first 6 months.
First 6
so
months.
I'm confident that we can achieve 2.5 billion.
You can achieve $2 billion US by the end of this year.
That's right.
Let's talk about the last few years. We spoke about a lot of new projects being implemented in Sri Lanka right after the conflict ended. We spoke about Krish, we spoke about Shangri-La, we spoke about the port projects, we spoke about the aviation projects that the government has thought about and all that. However, this year, nothing significant has really come about in terms of FDIs. Agree or disagree?
I disagree. Port City is one
Port City was signed just a few weeks
back. That's right. So over 1.6 billion US. I mean, when can you get some company to come and reclaim the sea and start development? I mean, you have various politicians from various quarters making various loud noises. But see how progressive we are. We are reclaiming the sea, right? And having a landmass.
What are the benefits for the Sri Lankans? Many opposition parliamentarians have been voicing their concerns about even the Port City project. They have said that Chinese men and women are going to be deployed to construct the Port City project and so on and so forth. What would Sri Lankans reap from this project in question?
Minimum of 2,000 would get employment, and also in terms of the agreement, only 50 Chinese are permitted. For foreign employees, yeah.
In the entire project? So who's going to build the port city?
So obviously the Chinese company is involved in building and already work has progressed. So I think, politicians, when you're in the opposition, you need to say something. But unfortunately, we lack constructive criticism. I mean, criticism for the sake of creating a political stage is unfortunate. Because, I mean, opposition should engage with us and be progressive in their thinking, compliment us for what we are doing right, and then if there is some issue to be raised, they should raise it. Every step on every program or every initiative we have taken, we say something. Say that the Chinese company is bad. That's a company listed in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And they bought a subsidiary which had issues, but a new entity bought in that company, where certain oppositions at our consultative committee meetings also raised certain issues. And I have very clearly stated that we are very transparent in our dealings with these companies.
You think we are on the right track?
I think we are on the right track.
We can achieve 2.5 billion by the end of this year.
The development after His Excellency President Mahinda Rajapaksa took over. I mean, you could see what's happening around. You look at the skyline of Colombo. Before 2009 and what it is now, obviously anybody would say we are progressive. We are one of the cleanest countries in the world, and we are on the right track. There is tangible development taking place in all sectors, and you see it filtering down to the masses.
Now, one of the projects that was discussed extensively over the last few years is the project initiated by James Packer, which is the Lake Leisure project.
That's right.
However, no sound about this project at all.
So when
what's happening? What's going on?
When for no rational reason, when you get so many negative vibes being raised, obviously obviously the investor would think twice or would have some concerns. So obviously I believe that James Packer must be having some concerns with all this noise which was raised, because in my opinion all this noise which has no rational reason for raising. I mean, it was the United National Party in 1988 brought in the Betting and Gaming Levy Act. Thereby, on one hand, they said casinos were illegal and they started collecting taxes on it. So it's unfortunate that so much of criticism without any rational base, right, was raised with regard to the project.
So the Lake Leisure project is not happening?
No, it's not happening. The investors raised certain concern.
What are the concerns raised by the investor?
Maybe with all these issues raised, I mean, the project is to progress. But he has a time frame to progress. There is a specific time for him to complete the project, and as the BOI, we have given the investor particular time to complete the project. So there are certain steps which he has to take, and for whatever reason, there is a lull with regard to that project.
So there is no conducive environment in Sri Lanka for a foreign direct investor to come and invest.
I mean, I think it's not fair. That statement is not fair at regard to a specific project. Like you asked me, James Packer has raised certain concerns about proceeding with his mixed development.
So he's not going to invest in Sri Lanka?
Not that he said he's not going to invest in this instance. I mean, there's a lull with regard to him progressing on this project. He has not written to us and stated that he is not proceeding with this project, and I don't think that he won't proceed with this project. It's just that there has been a lull with regard to the next step which he has to take with regard to
what is the next step that he has to take?
I mean, once the land is cleared, obviously construction and to move on. So I mean, you're also articulating what the opposition is raising. James Packer, after various issues were raised with regard in various quarters, I mean, obviously he would have had his concerns, and at this moment, this project is not progressing. Not that there is a stop to it.
Let's talk about the Krish project again, which has been done by an Indian-based company. Now, this project is being debated extensively in Parliament.
This is debating about a certain small component which has to be paid, which I believe is less than 10 or 15% of the
total. How come the government is very silent on projects like this?
There is no silence. That project is going through. I mean, there is no silence. It's just that there was a delay in that investor paying a certain amount of money. I think more than 80% was has been paid. So, I mean, you have to make noise, no? I mean, that's what the opposition thinks they have to do.
What's happened to the balance 20%?
So, I mean, they were given extra. This project is not handled by our institution, right? The land belongs to another institution, and that I think that they were given a further extension of time to make that payment. But I want to place on record, over 80% or 85% of the land value was paid. This issue was raised with regard to a very small component which had to be paid.
Are they giving concession based on the whim of certain individuals in terms of FDIs?
No concessions given. As you know, there is a Strategic Development Act, and also we have the normal BOL law, and we are very transparent so that any investor, a mega investment, we place it in terms of the Strategic Development Act to Parliament, and then those concessions either approved by Parliament or disapproved.
The government has a majority in Parliament, so could act based on its whim in terms of getting bills passed. But are these bills ethical in terms of our progression? Can we bring in bills based on the whim of the government when they have a 2/3 majority in Parliament, and they bring forth, they get it passed, and then it's a part of the law?
That is democracy. I mean, you could always, firstly you can say government doesn't have a majority when the government doesn't have a majority, and a bill does not, a bill is not passed. When a government has such a strong majority and it is approved by parliament, it's the democratic elected government. They have 161. So nobody can say it's unethical. How can you say a bill which was not passed is unethical when the sovereignty of the people is exercised through parliament? And if the government has a majority and it's approved by party, the people have sanctioned it.
There was an issue raised by majority of the opposition parliamentarians and even civil activists stating that there is corruption within the government which is having an impact on investments in Sri Lanka. Agreed or disagreed?
I disagree. Corruption in any country, to a certain extent, there have been, from the time we had independence, there are good politicians, there are bad politicians, there are corrupt politicians, there are corrupt members of civil society, there are corrupt businessmen. So I don't think one can point fingers on saying that this country is not progressing due to corruption. I mean, it's very unfair for anybody to point a finger in this manner to us. I mean, corruption has been there from that point of time. A very small percentage in any part of society. That's why you have jails. There are jails, and there are people who are convicted.
Don't you think transparency is needed when signing up deals?
We are very transparent because most big projects go through the Strategic Development Act. I don't know whether you are aware of the Strategic Development Act. That is a mechanism that we are so transparent that the project is put before Parliament before granting any concessions. So if
but the government has a 2/3 majority in Parliament. It is going to be passed anyway. Where is transparency?
Can I tell you one thing?
Yes.
What is the better mechanism than putting it before? Tell me another mechanism. I mean, than the BOI or this ministry deciding it. It is put before Parliament, it is debated. That's why all these issues, even with regard to James Packer and all these other issues, it was placed before Parliament and it was debated. That's where all the oppositions got opportunity of raising their various views on this whole issue. So that's the most transparent mechanism.
So there is no red tape involved in terms of investments in Sri Lanka?
What do you mean by red tape? I mean, if any project, right? A mega project is placed before Parliament and Parliament approves what facilities should be given. Any concession, you can point a finger at a government if you give some concessions which you should not grant. So here, Parliament decides on the concessions to be granted. What better mechanism?
Now, the government is looking at bringing an act to ensure foreign investors cannot purchase lands in Sri Lanka. Can the country be made the miracle of Asia? Can it attract FDIs when such stringent laws are in place? Now, the opposition on one side is saying that there are stringent laws, and then on the other side they are saying that there are no stringent laws enough to govern and structure and ensure that there is transparency in terms of FDIs. What is your take on this?
The land bill, various investors and various parties raise certain issues. That's why last time it was not placed before Parliament to be voted on. So the government is having a further dialogue with all stakeholders to decide where certain amendments need to be brought about. Until a bill is made law, there is no point about debating it. So here, when a bill is placed to be law, it has to be approved by Parliament. So here, with regard to the land bill, I saw a lot of articles in the newspapers and a lot of negative publicity. But the government, we are a right-thinking government, we want further dialogue and we would address issues which have been raised by parties and be progressive.
Now, at some instances, the government has taken over lands and properties even before the lease period is over. The best example that I can bring forth is a few years ago, the Appropriation Act that came about where over 30 companies that the government deemed was underutilized and underperforming were taken over by the government even before the leasing period was over. Is this the way to go about?
Yeah, if state resources are underutilized, it's detrimental to the interest of the country. So, I mean,
it's a very subjective term, underutilized.
You can look at it in various perspectives, but the government has the right to go into a matter and decide whether these resources can be put to better use. So this bill was passed by Parliament, and it was decided by the government that these resources can be put to better use.
I still recollect.
A simple example, the Hyatt. This build that it was ISO. For how long, right? This building was half constructed, but now the construction is taking place, and it's moving on. Most of these companies, right, had assets which they obtained from the state, and they did not put it to the maximum use where the people of this country could get tangible benefit out of it.
You agree that there was a 3-decade-long conflict in Sri Lanka?
I agree there was a 3-decade-long conflict, but that doesn't permit a company to use that as an excuse to underutilize state resources.
But there are so many companies within the government which are loss-making entities. Look at the COPE report, for an example. Even this time around, over 40 companies within the Sri Lankan government are deemed as underperforming and underutilized.
Certain companies.
So does that permit the government to give them the private sector?
But you should look at it. There are certain companies which are run for the net benefit of the public. Now, Sri Lankan Airlines, you could argue and say it's running at a loss, but Sri Lankan tourism is 60 to 80% dependent on the tourists which Sri Lankan Airlines build. So you have to
take it as an
example. The same. You have to look at the big picture. Now,
what's the big picture?
Big picture we are island. We are island nation. So you need to bring people to come to Sri Lanka. And I was a tourism promotion minister at one time. If not for our national carrier, Sri Lankan tourism will crash because majority of the tourists use our national carrier to come to Sri Lanka.
Mean Airways, what is the justification?
It's the same thing. We need a budget airline. Obviously, for the elite, they don't. But for the common man in this country, we need to provide that service. If you see the price which Mihinia offers to go to Damadiva and places like that, which is a national need.
So you mean to say it's justifiable to have an airline which is making loss
all over the world? Yeah, very few airlines run at a profit. You can name, right, maximum about if you take the airlines which are operational, right, a handful are only running at a profit. To run an airline profitably is a very difficult task, but most countries have a national carrier. Why is that? Because they look at the big picture, and Sri Lankan Airlines is part of our big picture.
The Sri Lankan Exhibition and Convention Centre, which was also taken over by the government when the Appropriation Act came into being, I still recollect I had the opportunity to speak to the chairman at that time, which was from a Singapore-based company, and asked him what is the justification to take over this particular entity, which was the Sri Lankan Exhibition Centre, and he says that he told me that we were making a loss since the war. There was no question about that. However, after the war ended, we are now making a profit, and when we are making a profit, the government wants to take over by cancelling the lease. So let's take the Shangri-La for an example. 2015 construction has to end according to the agreement that has been signed. So when the government deems that Shangri-La has not performed well or has underperformed, you could take it over.
I mean, it's easy to put an argument in that sense, but it doesn't happen in that sense. All these companies under that bill, consistently the government was telling them to get their act together, which they failed to do. You can't compare that with Shangri-La, which is a good investment for Sri Lanka, and and one cannot express the view that the government will come and take your assets at any time. That's not the message we as a country.
What is the message?
The message in terms of that bill, government took a call that those underutilized assets could be put to better use, and that's why that bill was passed by Parliament.
So we're talking about the Appropriation Act. You were saying that the bill was right at that particular moment to be brought forward.
The government did a judgment call. I mean, there's difference of opinion. I mean, I could see you seem to differ in your opinion on this as well, like that Singaporean chairman who felt that he lost his company, but the government.
That's what his opinion.
That's his opinion. But my opinion would be that the government believed that the convention centre could be put to better use because it was underutilized.
Is that now making a profit?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about how it's being operated now, but I believe it's running at a profit because it should run at a profit looking at its performance.
And now the government has said that it intends to take industries to the village. What does the government intend to do? What is the mechanism that would be in place in terms of taking industries to the village?
Can I tell you a good example? Today, there's a major labor shortage in the cities. Nobody wants to work in factories. My minister at present is in Jaffna, trying to look at land to set up industrial parks under the BOI. So we are looking at taking industries to the village, because there is a need to create employment, especially in the north and the east, right? There are kids who have not seen a light bulb until the war was over. And we need to uplift their economic status, because you see politicians in the north are playing politics. But we are looking at giving the masses their tangible benefit by doing development.
Development in Colombo and Hambantota alone? Or?
No, if you look at the north and the east, I'm sure you have gone around Sri Lanka, you would have seen the road network. I don't think the road network is restricted to Colombo and Hambantota. I mean, this is like the opposition continuously echoing that sentiment.
Let's talk about major development projects taking place. You see a port in Hambantota being built, you see a airport being built in Hambantota. There are significant development projects taking place in Colombo and Hambantota. Tell me industries, tell me projects that have been launched in other parts of the country that generate employment opportunities.
In totality, right? Norichola, the coal power project, right? Like that, there are the Mahoya project, right? If you look at projects, right? There are projects to bring tangible benefit to the people all over the country. But it's a political slogan which is used against the government. Look, we needed a port in the deep south. And after independence, we have only one international. How shameful as a nation we are, right? We need a second international airport.
Are we utilizing it to the maximum?
Look, can I tell you something? When you start an airport, overnight can you get air traffic? I mean, these are steps taken by a visionary. And I believe this President Mahinda Rajapaksa is a visionary. I mean, we needed another port in the deep south. We needed an airport. I mean, these are long-term measures. I mean, the opposition goes to the airport and the port. Look, there are only a few ships or a few aircraft. I mean, is that the way to look at it? I mean, you have a long-term strategy. You don't build a port or an airport to get traffic overnight. It cannot be done. You look at other models in other parts of the world. I mean, capacity building is a process. With a port, with an airport, you set up an industrial park, you build capacity, then that's how to go about things. But unfortunately, today everything is, because the opposition has nothing to say. This is the opposition which continuously echoed the sentiment that the war against LTT cannot be won. We won the war. We brought in tangible peace. We have given people tangible benefits. Right? So, I mean, people feel empowered. You go to any village. I mean, today, over 90%, there's electricity. I mean, this is development. People have water. People have proper roads. People have sanitation. What more do you expect? You have an elitist few continuously echoing various sentiments. But unfortunately, most opposition politicians, they don't know what the rural masses want.
Now, taking a look at the election trend, the government has recorded resounding victories over the last few years in terms of elections. However, the recently concluded over provincial council polls, there's a dip in the voter percentage. Yes, does the people really want this government to continue taking into account the recent elections?
Did the United National Party win this election? Did the UN? A victory is if you win the election. Always the United National Party talks about how progressive they are. From 0 we have come to 5, from 5 we have come to 10, from 10 we have come to 20, from 20 we have come to 30. But in democracy, the end call is who won the election? The Uva Provincial Council, the Badulla and the Monragala district was won by the UP. What else do you want? I mean, figures you can turn here and there, but the end result is the UMP. What victory can the UMP claim? What victory can the JVP claim? They got only one seat each, the JVP in Monragala and Badulla. UMP got only 13. So, is the UMP, unfortunately, the UMP came to naught. From naught, when you progress, so when you progress from 0, right, then you're progressive. But you're not progressive in comparison to the UPFA. So what the UMP is now trying to argue is, we have done better than we did earlier. Therefore, in future, we are going to do better than the UPFA. I mean, there is no rationale to it. There is no logical sequence in any of the arguments.
The current human rights record of Sri Lanka, the OHCHR investigation, so on and so forth, has that really affected the country's forward march in terms of FDIs, in terms of achieving its targets?
These these inquiries are based on hearsay. We had a humanitarian operation. We won a war. We don't want any inquiry which affects our sovereignty. We are a proud nation. We will not bow down to any foreign power.
Has it made your life difficult as the Deputy Minister of Investment
I have been
Promotions?
engaging with investors. Not one foreign investor questioned us on our human rights track record. But they know when they come to Sri Lanka, they know what's happening. These are done by a certain the LTT diaspora. And I, for one, believe that some of our Sri Lankan politicians are trying to use foreign forces because President Mahinda Rajapaksa cannot be defeated in a democratic election. And that's a fact.
Are we serious about the West? Are we serious about those who bring out allegations
our
against
major
Sri Lanka?
export market is to the US. So we're serious. Our goods and services are going to Europe and to the US. So aren't we serious? We may differ they may differ with our thinking. That's a different issue. But with regard to business and commerce, we are serious, they are serious. But on certain issues, they differ. The way we look they differ to our perspective. But always that happens international, like domestic politics, internationally also people have diverse views. People have other agendas. You take certain countries, they are dependent on the Tamil diaspora, LTT diaspora, right, to win certain electorates. So they will try to destabilize us because for their domestic politics.
During the last 1 week, your focus has been to exploit the markets in the Middle East in terms of investments, and during a function that was held early in the week, you said that it's important for us as a country to exploit the markets in the Middle East and attract investors to come and invest in Sri Lanka. What is your thinking behind this?
No, I invited 6 to 7 ambassadors from the Middle East, and I invited the GEM Authority, the Tourist Board, the EDB, and other line agencies who are engaged in bringing FDI to the country, either through exports or through the sale of GEM. We need a unified approach. So I want to have a common strategy in attracting FDI from the Middle East. And I had a close-door session with the ambassadors and got their thinking in how we should do it best. And we are working very hard because, as you know, the Middle East, there's a lot of disposable income or money. So we should try to attract more from the Middle East because, firstly, geographically there is close proximity, and there has been some major investment like Etisalat, Serendip Flour Mills, Al Futtaim into AMW. So I think with a little more effort, we can entice more Middle Eastern investment. And when I was the tourism minister, I initiated Middle Eastern tourists coming into Sri Lanka. So I am passionate about it. I see there's great opportunity in the Middle East. His Excellency the President has always given me the task, even when I was the tourism minister, to bring in tourists. So here I have his blessings to trying to bring in FDI to this country by working closely with the Middle East countries.
What do you envisage for Sri Lanka in the next few months? Where do you want to see Sri Lanka positioned?
We need to bring in more high-tech industries. Where IT literacy is going up. By the year 2016, we expect it to go up by about 75%. So with that, we need more KPOs, BPO, and we need to move into the knowledge industry as a second phase and create jobs in that area. So I believe that we should look at those opportunities as well, while looking at the traditional investments of hotels and garment factories and those. In addition to those areas, we also should look into other areas and try to move to a more knowledge-based economy.
Next year will probably be an election year for Sri Lanka. If someone came and asked you, have we done enough? What would be your answer?
I would say our track record as elections would show that we have done enough. People have not rejected at any stage. So it is the people that elect governments. So very confident at our presidential candidate is Excellency President Mahinda Rajapaksa, and I believe that he will win with a great majority. And the people are with us.
Thank you very much, Faisal, for joining us right here on Newsfirst in Focus, despite your demanding schedule.